Hello everyone, and welcome back to Siege Tales. For those just joining us, this is part 2 of our story, She Trusted the Wrong Friend. If you missed the first part, I highly recommend checking our playlist to catch up on how Vernita's world was turned upside down. Now, let's dive back into the story. Vernita didn't scream after that night. She didn't beg. She didn't post cryptic quotes or cry on social media for the world to see. She simply went silent. The kind of unnerving silence that hangs in the air right before a storm breaks. For weeks, Vernita lived alone in a small, quiet apartment on the edge of Willow Creek. The walls were bare, the nights felt endless, and the sting of betrayal replayed in her mind like a broken record. Her best friend and her husband, together. But beneath the heavy cloak of grief, something else began to surface. It was a cold, hard clarity. She started replaying every conversation, every helpful suggestion, every concerned text message from her so-called friend, Jessica. And as she connected the dots, one terrifying truth became undeniable. This wasn't just a series of unfortunate events. This wasn't a mistake. This was a strategy. A calculated, deliberate plan to dismantle her life. So Vernita did the one thing Jessica, and even Marcus, never saw coming. She didn't seek revenge. She sought justice. She hired a lawyer. But not just any lawyer. She found Elaine Porter, a forensic divorce attorney who specialized in untangling complex webs of financial manipulation and marital interference. Elaine was sharp-eyed, methodical, and had an unshakable calm that gave Vernita the strength she desperately needed. After Vernita laid out the entire heartbreaking story, Elaine listened patiently, her expression unreadable. When Vernita finished, Elaine leaned forward and asked one single, piercing question. Did your friend ever benefit financially from your marriage? That one question changed everything. It was the key that unlocked the entire conspiracy. Together, they started digging. They went through years of bank statements, scrutinized joint accounts, and followed digital trails that Jessica thought she had erased. What they found was devastating, and more importantly, it was damning. Money had been systematically siphoned from Vernita and Marcus's joint savings account. The amounts were small, almost unnoticeable on their own, disguised as loans that were never repaid or emergency support for Jessica during her supposed hard times. It was a slow, methodical drain of their resources. The most shocking discovery was the engagement ring. The very ring Marcus had used to propose to Jessica had been paid for, indirectly, with Vernita's own money. She found metadata mismatches, timestamping consistencies, and cleverly edited message threads. It was concrete proof that Jessica had fabricated evidence to paint Vernita as a villain, to poison Marcus's mind, and to systematically isolate her from her own husband. Then came the final, legal blow. Elaine discovered that Jessica had violated a specific state law by knowingly interfering in a marriage for personal and financial gain. The charge was alienation of affection, compounded by outright fraud. The case wasn't just strong, it was airtight. Meanwhile, Marcus's new life was beginning to unravel. The honeymoon phase with Jessica was brutally short. Without the thrill of a secret affair, without a marriage to steal, the reality of who Jessica was started to show. She became controlling, deeply paranoid, and strangely obsessed with Vernita. One moment she'd be mocking Vernita, the next she'd be flying into a rage at the mere mention of her name. The woman Marcus thought he knew was just an illusion. And then, the court papers arrived. Served directly to him and Jessica. Marcus sat down and read every single line. The financial records. The timelines. The fabricated text messages. For the first time, the fog that had clouded his judgment began to lift. Every truth Jessica had fed him, every lie she had spun about Vernita, collapsed under the crushing weight of undeniable facts. That same evening, he showed up at Vernita's apartment, unannounced. When she opened the door, he looked smaller than she remembered, diminished. "I was wrong," he said, his voice cracking with a shame he could no longer hide. "About everything." Vernita just looked at him, her face a mask of quiet composure. She didn't respond. He continued, desperation creeping into his voice. "I let someone rewrite my reality. And in the process, I destroyed the one person who never, ever lied to me." Still, she said nothing. She just stood there, watching him break. Because for the first time in a very long time, she was the one holding all the power. The lawsuit moved forward with incredible speed. Jessica tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. She then tried to settle out of court, hoping to make it all go away quietly. When that failed, she reverted to her old tricks, trying to manipulate her way out of the consequences. But the truth doesn't bend forever. Eventually, it snaps back. The court's ruling was decisive. The judge found entirely in Vernita's favor. Jessica lost. She lost financially, ordered to pay significant damages and return all the stolen funds. She lost socially, as the public nature of the case exposed her deceit to everyone. And she lost legally, with a permanent no-contact order slapped against her, ensuring she could never interfere in Vernita's life again. Her picture-perfect life, built on lies, collapsed just as publicly as she had built it. Justice came not with a bang, but with the quiet, final stroke of a judge's pen. After it was all over, Vernita finally made her choice. She agreed to meet Marcus one last time, not as his broken wife, but as a woman who had survived him and come out stronger on the other side. They sat across from each other in a quiet cafe. There were no raised voices, no dramatic tears. Just a heavy, honest silence between them. "I don't want the old us," Vernita said calmly, her voice steady. "That marriage, the one we had, died the moment you stopped protecting it from outside forces." Marcus simply nodded, accepting her words. "I don't want that either," he admitted quietly. "I want honesty," she continued, laying out her terms. "Real therapy. Full accountability for your actions. And time. A lot of time. If you truly want another chance with me, it won't be handed to you. It will have to be earned." He agreed to everything. Without hesitation, without conditions. Months passed. They began to rebuild, not on the ruins of their old life, but on a new, solid foundation. It was a slow, sometimes painful process, filled with difficult counseling sessions, long conversations that went late into the night, and apologies that were backed by consistent, meaningful action. They established firm boundaries that could not be crossed. One quiet evening, sitting together, Marcus asked a different kind of question. It wasn't a proposal, but a plea. "Can I earn my way back into your life?" he asked, his eyes searching hers for a glimmer of hope. Vernita looked at him, really looked at him, not as the man who had betrayed her, but as the man who had finally learned the devastating cost of his choices. "Yes," she said softly, "you can. But this time, I lead." A year later, they were married. There was no grand ceremony, no big audience of friends and family. It was just the two of them, speaking vows with their eyes wide open to the past and committed to a new future. Jessica was a ghost of the past. They never heard from her again. And Vernita. She found a new kind of strength, a new way to love. Because the real lesson wasn't about getting revenge. It was about choosing yourself first, protecting what is yours, and having the grace to let everything else fall into place. This story teaches us some powerful lessons. First, silence can be a source of incredible strength and clarity. It allows you to step back and see the full picture without the noise of emotion. Second, never underestimate the importance of protecting your relationship's boundaries from outside influences, no matter how trusted they seem. And finally, true justice isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's the quiet, methodical work of uncovering the truth and holding people accountable for their actions. It reminds us that forgiveness is possible, but it must be earned through genuine change and accountability. Thank you all so much for watching and for all your amazing comments, likes, and shares on part 1. Your support means the world to us here at Siege Tales. If you're new, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button and share this video so others can find our stories. We'll see you in the next one.